welcome to the Alpine Valley School podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gallivan, a staff member and graduate of Alpine Valley School. This is the 61st episode of the Alpine Valley School podcast, and you can find show notes for this episode, including links and other details, at alpinevalleySchool.com/podcast/EP61 for episode 61. Before we dive in, let me remind you about Alpine Valley School. We are a private K-12 school located in Denver, Colorado, that follows a self-directed democratic education model, also known as the Sudbury model. On this podcast, we discuss our model of education, share stories from day-to-day life at school, and interview families involved in our program about their experiences. Today, we're excited to bring you the second part of the Visionaries and Voices series, featuring audio from the recent Global Self-Directed Democratic School Conference, which Alpine Valley School had the honor of hosting this past summer. In this episode, I'll be sharing a powerful and inspiring speech by Cassi Clausen, founder of the Open School in California. Cassi's journey from conventional education to pioneering self-directed learning offers insights for educators, parents, and anyone interested in alternative education models. Her story resonates deeply with our mission at Alpine Valley School, emphasizing freedom, respect, and individual growth, values that align perfectly with our own core principles. As you listen to Cassi's experience and vision for the future of education, I invite you to reflect on how her insights might apply to your own educational journey or that of your children. Without further ado, let's hear from Cassi Clausen of the Open School.
Hi, all. My name is Cassi Clausen. I am from the Open School in Orange County, California. And I'm planning to basically share a little bit of our story with you tonight. So I started off as a very staunch advocate of conventional education as a path to success. When I graduated from college, that was the focus for me. I thought, this is what I want to have as many degrees as possible. I want my children to be college educated. This is the thing that is what we need to bring to as many people as possible, is conventional pushing kids through a system of education. I got my first job in a college prep high school in St. Louis, Missouri, and I wanted to get paid more. And so what I decided to do was get a master's, because you can get over to the higher paid track. So I started getting a master's of education while I was working in that high school. And while I was there, I had all kinds of classes in curriculum and instruction and writing lesson plans and the No Child Left Behind legislation and all of those things. But I also had this class in philosophy of education. And I really loved this class. And I started reading these philosophers like John Dewey talking about intrinsic motivation being the way that kids learn, and Maria Montessori with play as the work of childhood. And I read these philosophers at night in my class, and the next day I go to work and I focus on managing behavior and test scores and carrots and sticks. And it just kept not making sense and going from one to the other and feeling as though we are missing something entirely. This system of education is not based on any of these philosophers, well, except for the ones that say education is the filling of a pail. And that's not what I thought it was. And in that class, which I'm so grateful to have taken, my world really changed when I read A.S. Neal about Summerhill. And that resonated so deep with me. I actually, a few years ago, was going through some keepsake boxes, and I found this essay that I wrote in that class about A.S. Neal. It gives me chills holding it, because this is the genesis of my change of understanding of education. And I get to read my words from that point, which the title is The Insertion of A.S. Neal's Principles in Traditional Education, which I don't know that is possible, but I argued that it was. And I, this paper is so, it's interesting to me to be able to look back in history and see it. And I do have to say, I got an A+. And the professor even said, I'm going to read her notes. She said, and I'm bragging, I am so impressed by this paper that I wonder whether you're wasting your talents pursuing a master's of education. Would an MA in philosophy meet any of your goals? No, I stayed with the education, but yeah. So that was the beginning for me of starting to think differently. I was a young teacher, and I was energetic, and I was trying to bring fun and games and intrinsic motivation to my students, and I worked really hard at it, but I still would see them the next year have to relearn everything that I had taught them. And after a little bit of this, I just came to the conclusion that I was a massive waste of their time. And, notwithstanding my time also being wasted, but I felt like I was, like this was just spinning our wheels and basically getting them to the point where they're an adult and now they're on their own. I got my master's degree in 2004. In 2006, my husband and I had the opportunity to move to London so that I could pursue yet another master's degree. And that year turned out, wasn't intended to be, but it turned out to be a bit of a sabbatical for us. So it was this opportunity to step outside of ourselves, outside of our culture, our career paths, all of the stuff of our own home life, and be outside and have lots of time because we weren't legally allowed to work. So, except for a little bit, but I spent a lot of time reading and writing and thinking and talking and really developing my own understanding and philosophy of education and what I wanted for myself. And in that year, we also were able to visit Summerhill and got a tour of Summerhill. And they only give tours 3 times a year, so if you're going, you got to plan accordingly. But we were able to tour this amazing school that changed my life. And I remember the moment that I thought, this is it. I cannot be part of any other educational space other than this kind of space. This is where I need to be. I need to find this or make this. And in that year, I wrote a vision for myself. And that vision described the school that I would make. And it described the physical space, what it would look like. It described the way the kids would be treated. And it also said that I would be making it by the time I was 40. And I was 27 at the time, so 40 was a long way away. And so that was my stated vision. It looked a lot like Summerhill, the vision in my head. The next part of my life moved me to Orange County, moved me to Southern California because my husband got a job there. And I thought, okay, well, in order to reach my vision, I'm going to need some money. And so I'm going to go into real estate. That was interesting to me. And I'm going to call my business Summerhill Investments. And so I did that in 2007. Anyone who was around 2007 or 2008 or so knows why that was not a great time to make a real estate investment company. So I did not escape the crash unscathed. I definitely learned a lot, lost some assets. And thankfully, or maybe my husband doesn't love this about me sometimes, I'm sort of just an optimist and kind of just keep going. And so I wasn't very fazed, honestly, by the fact that I didn't raise all my money through real estate in order to start a campus. But my attention was turned elsewhere as in 2009, my first son was born. And so I really decided at that point that I'm going to be an unschooler and I'm going to just learn everything I can about this idea of self-directed education at home and life learning. And I started blogging, and I started joining all the mommy groups and the unschooling groups, even though my kid was like still in a stroller and I wasn't school age, we were unschoolers. And so I delved into that really deep. I had my second child in 2011, and I really loved being a stay-at-home mom, but the whole time I never let go of that vision that I'm going to start a self-directed school by the time I'm 40. So I began creating and crafting more particularly what that school would be like. And I loved Summerhill, and I loved the idea of giving freedom, but I don't know if you know this about Summerhill, but they have classes. And they put things into subject areas, and you can go or not. And so I was like, I love that. But you know what I love about unschooling is how they value life learning. And that we don't have to segment knowledge into these subject areas. And that we can learn from anything. And I think I'm going to make a school like that, where you take Summerhill's freedom and then you take the unschooling life learning, and what an amazing idea. No one's ever thought of this. So then I quickly learned about Sudbury Valley, which beat me by about 50 years. So then in 2012, with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, I launched the Orange County Democratic School Startup Group. Orange County is actually a very conservative part of California, and this was concerning to a lot of people that we would have a Democratic school. So it was a confusing name. And along with my other founders, one of which is here, Lorna, who's actually on staff now, we decided to change the name to the Open School. So there's a little less confusion, but there's never no confusion. I want to just pause and say, like, as we were going through this founding process, I remember very keenly one of my chief fears was failing and embarrassing myself. And by saying out loud to my friends and family, posting on Facebook and having these info meetings, we were declaring that we were going to start this school. And always I was like, but are we? Like, is it really going to work? And if it doesn't, how embarrassing for me. And I would often have to talk to myself and remind myself that no matter what happens, people will love me and accept me. And there's no way to make big things without taking risks. My third child was born in 2014, after 2 years of the startup group. I'm pretty sure some of my co-founders thought that was it. We're not doing this anymore. I have a newborn. But they underestimated the power of that vision I wrote in my timeline. School by 40. So we decided we had enough momentum and enough community around us to launch the school in September of 2015. We had no real idea of who would actually enroll once we said enrollment's open. We just kind of started biting our nails. We had about 10 months lead time where we were wondering and trickling enrollment coming in. And we're looking for a campus. And in the end, we did open that fall in September with 11 students. We used my house as the campus for that first year. And we took frequent field trips in our school van named Frank. And I had my 36th birthday that month. So we beat my goal by 4 years. So. I am totally aging myself over and over in this speech, by the way. So the story of our foundation and moving and growing and all of that is pretty normal too for most of schools in this group. And I credit so much of our learning and growing and early years to the people in this room and all of the other schools who freely share their resources and their experience and their knowledge. But none of us had experience with the pandemic. So when that hit, we took a minute to get our feet under our ground, under us. Once we realized, this is going to be more than 2 weeks. I have this belief, and I think it's something that the open school takes on is that every obstacle is an opportunity. And so the prevailing wisdom in the Sudbury community, and I remember having this conversation at the 2018 conference, was that Sudbury cannot happen online. It has to have a physical campus, and that is it. There's no non-starter, can't do it. So we took the opportunity when the lockdown happened to question that prevailing wisdom and to ask, well, we don't have a choice now. Like, it happens online or it doesn't happen. So why can't we make it as meaningful and complete as possible? And what if we look across the world and the country and we see there's not very many schools like this. So if access is truly a value to us, then geographical access is included in that. It's not just, financial, but it's also, do you have a school near you? And if you don't, sorry. But if we create an online program that's actually meaningful and thorough and thoughtful, we could provide access to schools like this to people who don't have one near them. We saw the opportunity, and we definitely saw the market. So that's what we did. We spent the summer of 2020 meeting very frequently, figuring out, asking ourselves, what is it that a campus provides, and how can we most closely emulate that in a virtual space? And we knew we had that year, essentially, we knew there was a ticking clock on how long we had to develop and grow this program so that when our local kids went back to campus, that the virtual program had enough students to be engaging. We set ourselves a goal of having 20 virtual-only students by the time we went back to campus. We didn't quite make that. I think we had 15. But during that year, we lost 0 students. We kept every single one of our students during the pandemic, and we grew our school by about 50%. And part of that retention had to do with the community trust, which I think Larry was talking a lot about, that those families trusted us as we navigated that together. And they said, I don't know what you guys are doing, but we'll hold on and we'll help. And that worked. And then now, today, we have a virtual program that has 40 students completely virtual throughout the country. We have 3 full-time virtual staff. Jessica is one of them. We had our first virtual graduate this year, which is Lexi, and she's also going to be going into as an intern. And it is truly now its own ecosystem, and it's got all of its own stuff, and it's so exciting to see it live on its own. The virtual program also provided us a pathway to actually enact an old vision I haven't mentioned yet. See, a few years ago, I came to the belief, as I think some other people in this room have, and actually I'm on record at AVS, on the AVS podcast, talking about this. Our movement will really only truly be successful when there is a school in every community. And, we have our shining examples of, the big name schools, but that's not enough to be a successful movement. So we had a vision to create multiple campuses. And we even reorganized our structure, our business structure, so that we now have a kind of an umbrella organization, which I guess I failed to mention to a lot of people, called the Sprigg Institute. And the Sprigg Institute is created to support and foster open school campuses. And then we will have chapter organizations that are local campuses, and our Orange County campus is one, and we envision having more. In fact, in 2019, we tried to open one, which I'll talk about in a second. But I did want to mention I have a product to plug. And the reason I'm plugging this now is because Chris Cordial, who was here and had to leave, reminded me of this. the Sprigg Institute, we undertook we have a few projects, a few curriculums that we created, and one of them is for parent education. And is specifically, it's modules that are broken down. You can kind of go through, and there's sort of exercises, and it's about helping our parents understand what our schools are doing and why. And so Chris used this product for the Visa school, and basically was telling me earlier, I mean, I wish he was here to say it because this feels very self-aggrandizing, like how amazing it was. And so if you're interested, talk to me. I can sell it to you later. So anyway, we started down the road of opening a second campus in 2019. The founding group of families, unfortunately, was not established enough to weather the pandemic. So when March of 2020 hit, we absorbed those kids into our virtual program instead. But now with the virtual program, we see an opportunity to do something different, and that is to basically plant new campuses by cultivating communities within the virtual program and say, like, okay, let's find a space where there's not a current self-directed school, and add families into the virtual program there, saying, we want to put a campus in your neighborhood, but you don't have to wait till there's a campus. You can join a community now. Your student can be part of something now, and then when we have enough people, we can plant a school there. So I'm standing here today going on record, letting you know that I've written a new vision for myself for the Open School. And this is now, by the time I turn 50, that the Open School will have at least one more established campus and then a third developing campus. It's scary to say this out loud. And part of me actually wanted to say 5. I wanted to say we'd have 5 campuses in 5 years, but that feels a little, pushing myself a little bit. It is embarrassing. I'm scared to fail. I'm scared that if I fail, I'll be like, I'm on video saying that we're doing this. I was on the ABS podcast talking about our second campus, and then it closed. And that's embarrassing. But if you don't take risks, you can't do big things. And you guys will love me anyway. Yeah. So yeah, I hope that if you hear anything from me today, it's just, first of all, find people smarter than you to work with and who can give you coaching and mentorship, have big, scary visions, and take risks so you can do big things.
Thank you so much to Cassi for sharing her inspiring journey and vision with us. Her story of transformation from a conventional educator to a pioneer in self-directed learning is truly remarkable. I was particularly struck by her willingness to question the prevailing wisdom while she was in the middle of a master's in education and take risks to create meaningful educational experiences for students. Some things I really appreciated from Cassi's speech were her description of the aha moment that she had in her philosophy of education class, her bold move to start the Open School despite fears of failure, which I know all of us involved in this movement have certainly felt before, and the innovative approach to virtual learning that she and her colleagues implemented during the pandemic. Her vision of expanding access to self-directed democratic education throughout multiple campuses is exciting and a breath of fresh air for all of us. If you'd like to learn more about the Open School or explore some of the resources that Cassi mentioned, you can find links and additional information in the show notes page at alpinevalleySchool.com/podcast/EP61 for episode 61. If you'd like to see what self-directed democratic education looks like in practice here in Denver, Colorado, you'd be welcome to join Alpine Valley School for a weekly tour. We offer private tours of our campus once a week with interviews with our staff members and the experience of seeing our school in action. That information is also available on our website, alpinevalley.school.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, please reach out at podcast@alpinevalley.school.com or connect with us on social media. Don't forget to check out the other speeches in our Visionaries and Voices series from the Global Self-Directed Democratic School Conference. These talks offer a wealth of insights into the world of self-directed democratic education, and more will be released soon. As always, thank you for listening to the Alpine Valley School podcast. I'm Mark Gallivan, and we'll be back again soon with more stories of real learning for real life.